Great. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and welcome to CKAMAs. So today's guest is a testament to just how far persistence and tenacity can get you. Her insatiable desire to learn more drove her to ask questions and probe deeper beyond her role in tech support, inevitably leading her down a path to work as an engineer for some of the most impactful companies in the world, including the likes of Google, Craigslist, Twitter, Wikipedia, Clover Health, and Quip, but to name a few. Please unmute yourselves, turn your cameras on, and help me in welcoming the woman who went from bartering computer services in exchange for beer to leading a team behind one of Salesforce's most powerful tools, Quip's Senior Director of Engineering, Leslie Carr. Welcome, Leslie.
Hey.
Welcome, Leslie.
Welcome, Leslie.
Hey.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so inspired by your tenacity and like your curiosity being such a strong driver with the way your path unfolded. I would love to start with your bartering days and like the gradual advancement from fixing computers to tech support to eventually even like getting laid off, and then ultimately your curiosity is kind of driving you down that path towards leading you into computer networking. What made you do that? Like, what made you feel the need to ask so many questions?
That's a great question. Should I give a little bit of my background and how I got started?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and start unmuting everyone here just so that it's a little clearer. But yeah, Leslie, go ahead and unmute yourself and then we can start.
Cool. Yeah. So, hey, I'm Leslie Carr. So I sort of started my career a bit by accident. I was in college and I knew that my entire life was coming to be a chemical engineer until I got to college and I took my first chemical engineering class and I was like, oh boy, I hate this. So obviously I changed majors around a lot and I wound up dropping out. And then I started building computers in exchange for beer. So I had a friend of a friend owned a small computer company, and back in those days, in the old days, it actually was cheaper to build computers from parts by yourself than to buy them from Dell or something. Nowadays, the economics is all swapped. But yeah, so I was like, well, you know, this takes me not too much time. I can do this. Sorry to plug in my laptop. And then I found out that my friend was making $100 a computer and he was paying me like a 6-pack every 3 computers. So I got pretty upset about that. I actually started learning Linux in college, not from any class, but this was before most people had laptops. And so there were several computer labs on campus. One was a Windows one was a Mac one. Well, there are a lot of Windows and Mac ones. They were always really full. Then there were these weird Linux, Unix ones that had bigger screens and no one was ever in them. So I just started going to them and then sort of looking over my shoulder at like over the shoulder of the person next to me and asking people like, how do you do this? Like, I think my first question was, how do I log in? And just kept asking people. I just tried not to be afraid of sounding dumb because sounding dumb is the only way to then learn more and actually become smart. I really believe that smartness isn't like an ingrained thing. It's really just about tenacity. And I am very stubborn. So I started doing some tech support whenever I could find a tech support job because honestly, a lot of the other jobs that I had were, you know, minimum wage, like working at deli, things like that. And, you know, tech support paid $1 an hour over minimum wage, which was pretty great. And I could actually be sitting on my butt in an office instead of standing, you know, standing all day in front of a cash register. So that was a huge driver. And then the thing is with tech support, every time I had to send a ticket to someone else, I would ask that person like what they're doing. And then after like the next time I'd usually say, can I try? And a lot of times people are pretty happy to give away their jobs, or at least the parts of their jobs they don't like. They're like, wait, I can do less work and you can do the work. And so it was sort of a win-win because I got to learn a lot. And then they did. And I was working for the library system in Pittsburgh and got laid off. And was looking around for a lot of jobs, but this was 2003, and the economy in Pittsburgh was awful. I got turned down from a job at McDonald's, like cashier. Like it was so hard to find any jobs. Like I would go in for tech support jobs, and like there'd be someone with a PhD in computer science, you know, against me. Like it was impossible. And yeah, so my unemployment's getting close to running out. I'm like, I need money for rent and food. So one of my friends told me there's a bunch of jobs in Washington, DC. And I was like, no, you're lying. There's no jobs anywhere. Because, you know, in Pittsburgh, there's no jobs anywhere. But I think that's when I really learned how regional the job market is and the economy is. Especially, I think it's especially pronounced in recessions. And so Washington, DC, because, you know, the government loves contracts and is always spending money, turns out there were a lot of, you know, entry-level jobs. I applied around to pretty much every job that I could. I just kept on sending my resume and sending cover letters. Probably did like 5 to 10 every day. A lot of times I'd go to the library to use their computer to do that. And yeah, and I got a job at Google, working in their data centers, repairing their servers, which was pretty cool. And then when I was at Google, we had the opportunity to replace some of the networking gear. And some people from the vendor came out to give a little mini presentation on, you know, how this gear works, because you get that for free when you spend, you know, $100 million on network gear. And when I heard how network gear worked, I thought that was so interesting and cool. I wanted to do that. So, you know, worked really hard to sort of really be on top of my game. And I asked my boss after a bit, I was like, so how do I do networking? At the time, I was really lucky that Google was small enough that my boss was able just to email the head of network engineering and say, hey, I've got a woman here who wants to do networking. How does she do this? And there were some big network projects going on. And so the head of network engineering was like, well, we're doing a big project. By then I'd moved to Atlanta. I'm like, well, we're doing a big project in Atlanta. So how about she joins on a couple, we'll see how it goes. So I feel really, really lucky that they were willing to take a chance on me and just let me sort of tag along and try to help as much as I can. And then after a little while, I was doing enough projects that my boss was like, hey, you sort of got to decide where you're working for. And the network person was like, oh, well, yeah, you're doing enough work. You should come move out to Mountain View and be officially a part of the network engineering team. So I did. And then, you know, long story short, I'm definitely have a very short attention span. And as Google got bigger, the amount of work that you got to work on got a lot smaller, right? Because at scale, it's such a different thing. Like when you have 10 engineers, you get to touch everything. When you have 10,000 engineers, each person can only touch a tiny slice. And that just really wasn't what I was looking for. And so then I actually reached back out to the former head of network engineering. She'd moved on to another job by then. And I was like, hey, so do you have any contacts who are hiring? And she was able to, send my resume around, and that's how I got the job at Craigslist. And then fast forward, how I got out of network engineering was really just looking around. The systems world was automating and automating system setup, sort of what's now the DevOps or site reliability engineering model. And I saw that the networking world was behind and lagging on that. And honestly doing a lot of work manually. And I'm like, well, first off, this is not gonna last. But then secondly, I wanna be on this edge of this technology because, you know, in this industry, so much technology changes so quickly. You, I think, really have to work on staying ahead of the change. You don't, or else, you know, if you remember like COBOL programmers in the 90s, people who hadn't learned any of the new technology were experienced a lot of layoffs. So, you know, I want to make sure that when there's new technology, I'm there and ahead of it. And so that's how I moved sort of more into the systems world. And then when I was at Clover Health, I had a really wonderful manager, Marco Rogers, who's Polotech on Twitter. If you don't follow him, you should, because he's great. And he thought I'd be a good manager. And I really resisted becoming a manager because honestly, there's a lot of stereotypes about women in engineering that you're not technical, so you should move away from the most technical roles. And I was like, I don't want to be seen as a non-technical person. But Marco basically eased me into the world of engineering, of engineering management. He's like, well, how about for just a month, you cover a couple of meetings for me? And then started doing one-on-ones with everyone. And then I realized that a lot of engineering management is really about helping all of your engineers grow and develop to be the best engineers that they can be. And I really like that. I think it's great. And like, what really warms my heart is when one of my reports thinks that they can't do a project, and then I know they can do it. And then I'm like, just try. And then they do it, and like, they realize that they could do it. And it makes me so happy. I'm like, yes, good. I'm so glad you now know that you can do this because I knew that you were great. Yeah. So, and then now I'm at Quip, who's owned by Salesforce.
I love that so much. I think that, sorry, I'm gonna need some. So there's actually so much, like, there are so many like gold little nuggets in there that I kind of want to unpack. I'm gonna go ahead and just like ask like one or two more questions, and then we'll open this up to the community. But I just heard a couple of things there that I kind of want to tease out so everyone here on the call can listen to such, you know, unique and powerful insights that you have. So a lot of the people, at least when they were registering and were asking questions, they were kind of wondering like how beginners or like boot camp grads, like just straight out of, you know, boot camp, how they can get into jobs. But it also sounds like from your story, that tenacity coupled with that curiosity led you to ask questions which actually increased your scope of like what was out there, to the point where people were able to identify opportunities for you and help you find and land these roles that you actually had no idea were out there to begin with. What would you say would be some of your like biggest takeaways in asking those questions and discovering like what's out there, getting to the edge of those technologies, you know, like staying ahead of the change and landing those new opportunities?
Yeah, so there's a lot of important things in there. I think in the first part, when we're talking about the initial job finding, there was like, I didn't mention that there were, you know, hundreds of rejections for every sure I'll give you a phone interview. But I also, when I got a rejection that, you know, after an interview phase or phone interview phase, when I got a rejection, I asked what I could study to be better. A lot of people didn't tell me, but a couple people did, and I was able to go and find books on that. So, you know, it never hurts to ask, because then you may learn something that means the next interview you do, now you know that, and now it's better. As well, sorry, trying to remember all the parts of the question. They're talking about the people and finding the opportunities. Really just leaning on your network of people is so important. Like if you're in a boot camp, like keep in touch with the other boot camp people, right? Even, you know, just LinkedIn is a great way to at least get their contact info, but maybe if you see an article about something that you think they might be interested in, like just send them the article and be like, hey, I thought you might be interested in that. Just sort of to keep those relationships alive, because every single person that you've worked with could be finding you your next job. Also, their friends or their friends' partners, or, you know, I mean, sometimes random person you meet at a bar, every single person you meet is a potential way into a job. You can't take that for granted. You can't say, here's my resume, now hire me, but you can, you know, say, do you know of anyone who's hiring, and things like that. So yeah, so that's really huge, just keeping those relationships going. And if you're like me and sometimes you have trouble remembering like what people like and all that, you can just like have a document or a notebook and you can just write down things, right? And so when you see a core article, you can be like, oh, let me look and see who is really interested in Kubernetes, for example, and then go do that. And for keeping abreast of new technologies, it's a combination of, I've now built up a network of people from all the places I've worked at, and, you know, friendships I've had. So asking what they're doing. As well, a great place is looking at conferences. And a lot of conferences, especially ones put on by nonprofits, will, after the conference is done, put a lot of their videos online. So then I always find at conferences, I find like a lot of new, good technologies to discover. And yeah, and conferences are a great place to network. You can be an introvert and you instantly have a small talk topic, right? The small talk topic is, hey, what was your favorite talk at the conference? Or did you see this person talk? What do you think of that? But then also you can just start writing down, like I'll just have a list of topics, a list of, you know, new software or new Python libraries that I'll have written down during the conference, so that when I go home, I've really got to spend like a day or two of follow-up time. And I'll go and look at those and read people's blog posts and try to investigate them.
Yeah, no, I think that's really actionable advice right there. So everyone, please like take notes on these, because what she's saying is truth. So there was also a bit of talk with the sort of engineering management side of things. And I think that this kind of is relevant to whatever sorts of like leadership positions. So with the people that are either like looking into boot camps, or like are in boot camps, or eventually will be, you know, employed by someone that is above them, or, you know, inevitably, like even if they're their own entrepreneurs, right, and they want to hire people. There are two sides to that kind of like that relationship. And so I love how you talked about like wanting to like allowing your engineers to grow and like flourish into like whatever it is that they, you know, want to become. What are like sort of certain things that people on this call can take with them about things that you kind of like to see with the engineers that you work with to help them grow?
Yeah, honestly, if someone has like specific questions for me, that always makes it easier. If they've been thinking about goals, they have questions on how to think about goals. Like if you come in with a topic, it's always easier to start the conversation. Managers, we are not psychic. We're honestly, at least me, I'm running around at all these meetings all day. I'm a forgetful human, so reminding me of things is great. Like, don't assume that we know everything, because we really don't. we're just humans. Yeah, so just being mindful that your manager may be a forgetful person, and having something for them to talk about, because I think also managers do like talking. So maybe not all, but a lot. So if you give me a topic, I can talk about it with you, and it'll be great.
Yeah, I think having that intentionality is going to be really crucial to, you know, propelling your personal growth. So as far as the people that are on here on this call tonight, does anyone have any questions for Leslie? Wanted to open it up to the community.
You know I do.
All right, Mia, I love the participation. Love it. Let's do it.
So first off, I want to say thank you for your time. I always love these little chats that we get to do through Career Karma. My name is Mia. I am a disabled mom of four who is currently at Kenzie Academy for UX design and engineering. So that's a little bit about me. It's funny that you were talking about the networking aspect because my foundation project that I'm working on with Kenzie is actually building a networking app to help people remember names and remember people from events, to remember things they like, so that way you can keep ahead of networking, because sometimes it can be a little much. But my main question for you is, over all of these experiences that you had breaking into tech and just excelling in asking questions, what was the biggest thing that you learned through all of that experience?
That is a really good question.
That's fire question. Love it.
Yeah. I really think the biggest thing I learned was honestly finding the right people. Like when you find a good manager, follow them to any company they're at, because the right person, and it doesn't have to be a manager, it could be a peer, right? Peers are also great. Someone who gives you good feedback that you know is true. Like that's so helpful, because at least for me, I'm guessing for a lot of people, like you don't always know what you're bad at. Like you make a mistake, it's completely unintentional, so you weren't thinking about it. So someone who can give you a really good feedback is so helpful. And yeah, like, because this industry really is full of people, and you will also find some people who are not so great and not so nice. So avoid them, look at any company they're at and be like, I am not going near them.
So just when you're networking, building a good support group that gives you constructive feedback and criticism, so that way you can continue to grow.
Yeah, exactly. I think
Sweet.
it was hard to learn how to take feedback. I never really learned as a kid. My family was honestly a little dysfunctional, so
Same.
yeah, yeah. So it's more of a yelling and silence means everything is good kind of thing, which I had to, me plus therapy, got through to learn about. Wait, no, feedback can be given in a positive spirit, right? Like when someone says this code is bad, they aren't saying I'm bad. They're saying you did a mistake and I'm letting you know. So like, that's actually great. That's really caring.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's been a constant theme. And the reason I have such good questions is because we do Career Fridays at our school, and we have to ask these questions. So I actually have a preset list of questions that I ask that I will actually, I'll give to Melvin and he can put them everywhere. But they're just really good thought-provoking questions, and just kind of from the list, you can always pick something. Like there'll be something that somebody says as a speaker that you're just like, wait a second, no, I want more about that. So then you can pick from the list and kind of find the ones that work. So it makes it a little bit easier, because I get high anxiety, believe it or not.
Nice. Thank you.
But thank you for your time.
Hi, Leslie. This is Vivian. Thank you so much for doing this. My question has more to do with when you transition from regular management to directorship. What do you think are the major differences there? How did you get pulled into directorship? What's the difference in skill sets?
I just got pulled into it because it's Salesforce.
Yeah. Okay.
The big difference, honestly, is that you have to let go. I mean, as a manager, first off, you're letting go of hands-on. But then if you manage managers, you really have to let go, and that can be really hard.
So let go of the day-to-day work. So then what's the new work? What are the new skills and whatnot?
Discovering, like, how do you figure out what's going on, right? Like, so discovering, like skip levels, discovering those key people to ask what's going on.
Okay, so networking on steroids.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sort of.
Your reports. Yeah.
Okay.
That's also where you start to see we also then network with anyone else at the director level, because that's when you see duplicate work that happens. Because, especially as organizations get larger, the channels of communication can break down, and there's often too much communication. So you can't keep up with what's the right communication.
Yes.
So learning that sort of sideways to try to like, that sideways exchange of a sort of like 5,000 foot view, where you can like say, all right, here in 5 minutes are all the things all the teams are working on. What are your things all your teams are working on? And trying to find ways about like, oh, does it make sense for our teams to work together on this now? Or yeah.
So I'm hearing dealing with complexity is one of the problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like the other day, about 2 months ago, a team that I was managing did a project that turns out was on a different team's roadmap, and the only way the other team found out that this project was actually already done was that I got tea with their director. So.
Right. And you guys are you using Agile at all in your organization, or?
Not exactly. We let projects all run sort of in their own way. So it really depends. A lot of times it's a very loose Agile. We keep the spirit of a very close relationship with the product folks, and also looking at metrics closely to see is something successful or not.
Got it.
Yeah,
Got it.
so also
Okay.
a lot of time figuring out if the metrics are correct is one of the biggest challenges.
Yes, I came off of a role recently where I was doing that. I agree. It's tough.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
I have a question. So my question is about like when you're looking, you may not do this anymore, but at one point you probably hired some junior software engineer people.
Mm-hmm.
And so my concern is like getting out of boot camp and not having a solid portfolio, and just wanted to know how much, how much weight that carries, and any suggestions to make yourself more marketable. Because I think coming from a boot camp, it is a little bit more challenging in some ways to really prove yourself as an engineer.
Oh, definitely. I think it's sort of weird. It's like as soon as you have your first software engineering job and you have like 2 years behind you, then like you're going to be fighting away LinkedIn recruiters. But getting that first role is really difficult, and a lot of companies are, I have to push back on this myself with my company. Like, it's easier to hire a senior engineer because they already know everything, but you can't, because if you don't hire a junior engineer, then there's never going to be a new senior engineer. Just it's math.
Senior engineers will just look for a better job, whereas I think a junior has more loyalty in a way.
Yeah. So one of the big things. Yeah. But yeah. So one of the big things. Honestly, so I don't look at portfolios that much. I mean, having a good GitHub project is good. I'm gonna be honest, if I look at them, I do a very cursory glance, and I'm like, all right, this seems sane. Okay, cool. So having a lot of projects isn't as important as if you have like just one good repository that you can show off. And honestly, a lot of people with junior engineers will do things like some sort of standardized HackerRank test or some other sort of standard test. So practicing like the algorithm questions, because I know it's bad, but a lot of interview questions are not realistic to actual what you do in a day-to-day programming. But there's a couple of websites that have like coding challenge practice questions.
Would you be willing to, either if I give you my email, or if you is there a way to connect with you either through Twitter or something?
Yeah, Twitter at Sleeky, or LinkedIn also. Okay.
I'll send you a message then on LinkedIn, and then if you don't mind, like if you have time, just shooting those links to me, that would be like beyond amazing.
Oh yeah, or I also can post up in the forums later when I go find them.
Yeah, so that's actually a thing that I wanted to bring up too. Leslie, you didn't, I guess, fully confirm yet, but this was a thing that we kind of wanted to to kind of bring into light as well. But we have a really awesome, like, I would say you can consider it a kind of like a town hall too, where our entire community actually has this whole forum or discussion post where they're all able to like interact with each other, and with people just like Leslie, where she's willing to spend a little bit of her time and just answering questions or like sending the links that she, helped her throughout her own career. There's like a place where it can live and like kind of have a home, and we can document like how, this is one of our very first, a series of trying to get all of these discussions running, and having all of these like resources be accessible to everyone here, and then everyone to come that wasn't able to, join us in person. But yeah,
So what you're saying is I'll have access to those links through like a chat channel or a discussion channel?
Yeah, I think Leslie can share that for sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can jump on the forum and.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. And thanks for your time. I don't know that there's, this is just a really unique experience to have access to someone in your field and to be able to ask these questions. And, not everybody, like you said, is, always open to answering questions from us. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Does anyone else in the chat right now have any questions? I think we probably.
Yeah, there's a couple of us.
Yeah, Jalen, go for it.
Lindsay has a question, but I do have a question. So you mentioned like for every 100 applications, you get maybe one, hey, let's interview. So what was your mindset while you were sitting in those applications and getting all those negative responses? Like how were you able to deal with the almost constant rejection, and how were you able to build from that and tell yourself, hey, this is okay, I need to work on this, how do I get better?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say, oh, I just let it roll off my back, but that would be a lie. I did not. It hurt because, like I spent time on every single cover letter. And when you send in an application, it's sort of like you're sending in a piece of you. And so when you get rejected, it feels personal, at least to me. It felt more personal. I'm like, wait, they're rejecting me, Leslie, the human, not me, a future possible coworker, the theoretical thing. So yeah, I think just, friends, just telling yourself, hey, it's okay, grabbing a beer, not one beer per rejection, because then you're going to fall over and die of alcohol poisoning, but, just like one, and just be like, okay, you know what, it's okay, I got rejected, or I didn't hear back from this person. And I think it was both a stubbornness of, like, I just got to keep going, and also sort of a, like, I'm going to be honest, like, I didn't have a choice in a way, in that, like, I needed to find a job, or else I wouldn't be able to pay rent, and my landlord wouldn't care. And so, yeah, so I was like, well, I have to do this. And so I just have to keep going on and keep going at it. Yeah, so yeah, it's not easy, but after you've been rejected 100 times, the second 100's way easier.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that that's actually really important for a lot of you guys to like take away with, because I know, for example, in my own journey, right, like I kind of had to fabricate kind of that pressure, that sense of urgency, because whereas like I'm like super young, right, so I could always like just go home and just be like, all right, well, I like, threw in the towel, called it quits. But there's a certain sense of like when you have to think about, I need to pay rent. Like no one, my landlord will not care like how I pay for this rent, but I want to do this, like I want to do this for me, and being able to kind of engineer or like kind of even fabricate like a sense of urgency or that pressure of like really wanting to, sometimes that can be kind of that like last bit of edge that'll push you towards like, all right, let's go 200 rejections, 300 rejections. Like nothing's going to stop me. Like, let's keep it moving. So I really like that. So I think Lindsay here wanted to ask a question. Lindsay, did you want to unmute yourself and go ahead?
Yes, hello. So kind of a little bit of backstory. I wasn't really the technical type. I'm currently in the financials field, and it actually popped up on my Facebook feed for the app, and I was like, you know, why not? You know, I tried it, and I actually really liked it, and so I'm pretty much a newbie at this. Like I'm getting, you know, I'm starting into this, but I'm definitely this is something I want to aspire. What is your best advice for somebody who's completely starting out new? You know, definitely, you know, I heard what you were saying about the rejection and stuff like that, but even just starting fresh, what could you say would benefit me the most outside of, you know, just doing the practice, if that makes sense?
Yeah, well, I mean, the practice, it's really cool nowadays that there's so many many resources. Like there's like Code Academy and all sorts of things. So not only like, because back in my day I had to read from a book, so like it could be hard to tell, did I do it right or not? And this, like, it automatically checks for you to see if everything's correct, which is really cool. For me, you know, like I also do need some sort of accountability. Like for going to the gym, I need to have a buddy to, because it's really easy for me to just skip going to the gym, but it's somehow, even though I could just as easily stay in bed, but if my friend's at the gym, I then am like, well, I have to go because I let them down. So if you can find like a coding buddy, that'd be really good and helpful. Yeah, and keep on at it. I mean, it's just a skill that can be learned, and a lot of people can learn it. I actually get really angry that a lot of like colleges have this like calculus requirement, because you pretty much, unless you're doing like very specific like physics, graphics work, don't need to know like almost any math. Like that's, the computers do the math for you. So I feel like that like actually like keeps a lot of people from doing programming who could be great at it. Yeah, and so like, yeah, just don't get discouraged. You're gonna mess up stuff and you're gonna hit this like plateau. Like I always get like, there's this little plateau, you're like you start to know things, but then like you don't feel good enough to like know things, and like trying to find the projects, like try to find projects you can do and things you can do to keep getting over that plateau is helpful. Yeah, and I know in California, you get, there's a lot of free community college courses. I don't know what state you're in, but if those are available and free or within your budget, I think those are great, because then you have that accountability, and then also you have like a pre-made study group, because you can ask other people in your course and things like that.
Yeah, and Lindsay, I would also add to that, where with the CK app, you actually have a unique opportunity to find other people that are in the exact same like steps and shoes that you're in. And if you're, say, taking a Code Academy course or something, like you can find people by posting on discussions or going into squads and looking for people that are like-minded and going through the same steps. But I think that what Leslie was talking about with that accountability of like, well, I maybe sometimes would go to the gym like on my own, but like maybe sometimes not too. But if I know that there's someone there waiting for me, being like, hey, like where were you? Like you kind of let me down. It's typically like a super like strong, anchor for you to just keep on going. And I also did like the little point that you made about that plateauing and kind of finding projects that kind of fit the frame of, I know enough to like keep at it, but I don't know enough where I have to go out of my way to learn and get better and improve. And those are kind of just things you find along the way. And Yeah. Thank you for asking such a great question, Lindsay. Did you have anything else to add to that?
Yes, kind of as well. Almost piggybacking off of the last, not my last question, but the question before mine about, you know, the rejection and stuff like that. I don't know if you hire or not, but obviously you've been on the other side of it being hired on. What would you say when you finally got hired? Did that hiring manager ever tell you what made you stand out? Like, what helped you get the position that you're not, say, currently in, but helped you get into that first position? Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah, it makes good sense. I'm trying to think if I've ever gotten any feedback on why I did get hired. I'm not sure anyone has told me why I did get hired. Not that I can think of off the top of my head, at least.
okay, that's fine. I was just curious if anybody's given you feedback. Do you do hiring yourself, or do you not?
I do some. So we have this whole hiring, a hiring process and hiring committee. So I usually do like wrap up interviews and some initial phone calls with people. But my role is honestly like really tiny in it. It's mostly based on the engineers' decisions, and the managers are just there to help make sure that we're asking the correct questions. And
Okay, that helps. Thank you. And yeah, that was all my questions. Thank you so much.
thank you.
So do we have any other questions here in the audience tonight?
Yeah, I have one. This is Rosa. Hi, Leslie. I've heard about Quip. You work at Quip?
Yes.
Okay, I heard about Quip before because you guys had a scholarship a couple years ago for new developers or students, and I remember I applied to that. I was just wondering if you're going to have another scholarship anytime.
Yeah, we should have the Quip Diversity Scholarship should be coming up, I think this spring. It's for people enrolled in a full-time either university or boot camp program in the United States. Yeah, I think it should be announced on our blog if you keep reading that. And yeah.
Okay. Oh no, I finished boot camp, so I'm in my job search right now. Do you guys hire junior or boot camp graduates?
We do hire junior people. I'm trying to think. I think we have 2 openings left for the rest of the year. So if you look at the new grad positions on our website, you can apply there.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. So if no one else has questions, I'm willing to go ahead and take it over myself. Like, this is an amazing session we got here, and I'm actually learning so much too. But I wanted to make sure that our community members have their questions answered. So if anyone else has any questions, go ahead and either type them in the chat. Feel free to both unmute yourself and hopefully show a little bit of video too, just so Leslie can paint a name to a face. That'd be really awesome. So if we have any more questions for Leslie right now, feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself. And if not, I will take it away.
I have one quick question. So I noticed that you have your whiteboard in the back there. Do you pseudocode a lot before you actually hit the keyboard and start coding?
I do. This isn't mine. I just grabbed a random conference room. But yeah, so a lot of times I'll pseudocode. I like whiteboarding. My pseudocode and whiteboarding is usually just scribbles and arrows, like the circles goes to the squiggly line. But then a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put that like a more sensical pseudocode in comments, and then I fill out the code. So that's how my brain works best, because my brain doesn't think exactly in the syntax. So I'm like, cool, like let's do all the pieces that I think I need to do, then fill it in.
And so then you've already got your comments written because you've done your whiteboarding or your pseudocode
They're
kind of.
not well written. I rewrite the comments afterwards because they're in not good English that makes sense to me, but I'm not sure it makes sense to anyone else. So those comments are 100% for me to remember what I was thinking while whiteboarding and doing the scribble drawings.
Yeah, it's just changed my coding so much. Like I am all about the whiteboarding and pseudocode, and like I save so much time when I slow down.
Yeah.
And instead of like trying to meet, that stereotypical coder that's like immersed in the keyboard for hours or something, like it doesn't work. Like the pseudocode, I can go in and code so much faster. Like,
oh yeah.
Shout out to pseudocoding.
Yeah, because the thing is, like, you've done all of your mental planning, and so then you have the idea, and then it's so much easier. Implementing an idea is so much. It's, it might take longer, but it's easier than trying to come up with the idea and then coming up and implementing at the same time. It can be so hard. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of mocking it out and then going for it.
Yeah, and it's just like part of the journey, knowing yourself. Like I've learned so much about myself as I've learned to code, and that's like I've learned more about how my brain works.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been good. All right, well, thank you.
I have one quick question. So from the very start of your journey all the way up to where you are now, if you could compact all of that into one word, just off the top of your head, what would you describe it as?
Insanity. Yeah, I don't know. I just never expected to be where I am today. And I really think it's a combination of luck and persistence. And it's pretty cool.
You are pretty awesome. So.
Yeah, so
I have a question. I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
Hi.
What was the first computer language that you learned? Like
the first one was basic, but it was because the National Geographic for Kids magazines used to have in the back like a basic program, and then you would type it in your computer, and then a little program would run. So that is the first. I'm not sure learned 100%. Like I was almost more mimicking, but yeah. And then bash scripting, which is very useful. Like it's not good for huge coding things, but for quick troubleshooting, it's great. And then Python. I think Python's great because I actually would go for Python 3 because it's a very readable language, so it's a lot easier than a lot of languages to figure out what's going on. But also, it's a very sellable skill. A lot of places use Python, therefore, you can saying that you have experience does give you a leg up, especially in your earlier career. Though I do want to make sure that everyone, when you're applying to a place, if it says you need, I don't know, Ruby knowledge and you don't have it, just apply anyways. I'll give you the big secret of job board postings. They are either a magical wish candidate that you're like, if someone filled every single one of these, that would be so amazing, but no one at the company fills every single one of them. No one ever. And number two, a lot of times they also may be written for immigration. So when it says you need to have a bachelor's degree plus 5 years of experience, that's because I've been in these cases where an immigration officer, if you don't say that you need a bachelor's degree, they'll say, well, a computer scientist must be an unskilled position because you didn't say you needed a bachelor's degree. Therefore, we're going to deny the visa of a worker. So you may have requirements that aren't really requirements, but so the U.S. government will recognize the fact that it is a skilled position.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. That's another great piece of advice that I wish that I had known when I was younger until someone told me was, yeah, just if you meet half of the requirements, just go ahead and apply. Like, don't think you have to meet everyone, because like I said, no one does.
Yeah, that's actually something that I've recently learned too. And so bringing it back to like where you were starting out and just being interested in you know, these sorts of things and like technology in general, and just seeing how much of like that growth and that path has led you to where you are now. What has maintained kind of consistent throughout that whole process, and like where you're at right now, like what keeps like motivating you to like push harder, and you know, like what's that driver that kind of guides you?
Yeah, I'd say it changed throughout my time. When I was younger, there was especially a driver to be seen as like the best and the most awesome. And I mean, but I think that also stemmed a little bit from insecurity about my skills. So that's why I pushed extra hard. And gonna be honest, I did not have a good work-life balance when I was younger, which I was very glad that when I went to Craigslist, they taught me about work-life balance, which was such a good lesson. And then as I got older, a lot more of my motivation has become about my coworkers. Especially as a manager, like I want, like the worst feeling that I have is that I've let one of my reports down, or I've let someone else down. I want to be always supportive for them. I always want to help everyone succeed. And, you know, success isn't identical for everyone. Everyone has a different idea of success, but like find out what success means for them and help them get that. And yeah, that's so big for me. And so that's what motivates me a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's actually kind of like an interestingly like innate human nature to just want to you know, be in service of others, right? That's like where a lot of people find their fulfillment. And one thing about me is like I'm really into just like a lot of the like mindset or like psychological drivers to you know, push us further in service of others, right? Because ultimately that's like the best feeling in the world, is just like understanding that like you were able to like help someone else with like, look at all of these things, like these wonderful like skills that I've acquired and all of this like knowledge that I've, you know, had, and like now I'm going to spend, you know, an hour like talking about all of these things to these wonderful people. And you know, you get to go back to your team and kind of do the same thing on like a day-to-day basis. I find that like extremely awesome and amazing of you. So before we close out, I also wanted to just ask, like, where can people find you? I know that I guess Laura, asked a little bit, but any sorts of like, you know, social media accounts, whatever, like that you got out there.
I have a Twitter, which I don't post in enough, but occasionally you'll see a good picture of my cat, which is it's Leslie Geek, and I'm on LinkedIn, and yeah.
All right. And so this is going to be my last question, and I guess the outcome of this would be something tangible that. So actually, I'll go ahead and ask you the question, and then I'll I guess add a comment as to why. So, what is one thing people can do this week to get them closer to their goal of breaking into tech?
Yeah, I would say the first thing to do this week is to practice writing a cover letter. And like, not just the cover letter isn't like, it's not restating your resume. I think the Ask a Manager blog has some both good examples and good, you know, tips on it. But it's, what about your experience calls out to the company? What about that company calls out to you? And I'm gonna admit, when you're applying to a lot of places, it gets exhausting. It's work. You gotta like set aside time for it. But it does get easier the more you practice it.
Yeah. So that's actually, by the way, everyone, I did not set Leslie up for this. She 100% just came up with that right now. So one thing that I've been, and I'll continue to be pushing down like people's throats, is one of the most amazing ways to get out to like networking or like, you know, potentially finding those mentors and like, you know, just connecting with people in general, right, is your ability to kind of tell your story, right? And one thing that I really enjoyed about at least my interactions with Leslie is that she's really thought about like these things, you know, that really have been huge and instrumental in her life. And these are all wonderful things that we can all learn from. And we have an entire discussion forum section dedicated to telling your story. And it's called Add a Chapter in our discussion forums. And you guys can learn a little bit more about my, you know, my story by going on there and watching my post or looking at my post. But I started off by essentially saying like, my mother's life story is the greatest book I've ever read. And this is actually super relevant to a cover letter or any type of interactions that you'll have, because what you are able to communicate with an employer, with someone that you just want to connect with, a friend, with a, you know, a spouse, you know, a team member, a lot of those things are like narratives and stories that we construct. And the practice of, you know, going through 100, 200, 300 rejections, you're kind of learning more about like what sorts of things, you know, resonate with people. And it all really just starts out with like that practice. And so I think that the discussions forum that we have are kind of like it's a very unique place where you can start that habit, like building that muscle memory of beginning to think about writing your story, right? Or telling your story. And I highly suggest everyone that is on this call tonight to go ahead and like peruse through all of those stories that we have in our wonderful Add a Chapter discussion board. And like the first step to writing those great cover letters is reflecting on like what sorts of things kind of light you up. And then once you're able to kind of identify those things, you can kind of like cross-reference it with whatever employer or whoever you're trying to reach out to with a cold email. It's all a practice of just like telling your story and doing it over and over and over and over again. So thank you so much, Leslie, for like bringing that up, because I think that that is like a pretty huge thing to get people started.
Hey, Melvin.
Yeah.
Can I ask her a question?
Yeah, sure. I guess.
Great.
We'll wrap it.
Last question.
Yeah, Leslie, go for it.
Oh, I'm sorry. My question was, what is pseudocode, and does your company make you do a whiteboard challenge in order to get hired? And that was pretty much the last thing I wanted to know, because y'all were talking about it.
Cool. So pseudocode is when you're sort of writing out words that are like code, but they aren't actually code. It's like not in Python. It's not something that's going to compile. So when I'm doing pseudocode, I might like write a sentence. It's like, do a for loop here. And so it's really just sort of like the placeholder of thinking about how this will interact. So does that make sense?
Yeah. So also, Lauren, Leslie will be available later on. I want to be like super cognizant of her time. So yeah, you guys can go ahead and like ask your questions later. I'll go ahead and make sure that you guys understand where to like find her and reach out to her. Leslie, thank you so much for being so amazing and spending an hour with us. It's been incredibly valuable for a lot of our members, and yeah, thank you so much.
I'm glad. Thank you. This was really fun. I appreciate it.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.